We're joined by Mike Hoss, play-by-play voice for the New Orleans Saints on WWL Radio in New Orleans. He'll have the call of Commanders Saints this weekend. Mike, thanks for the time, man. We appreciate it.
No problem. It's a big deal. I'm from the area myself. Went to James Madison, so
wow.
I love it.
Wow, very good. Go Dukes.
Small world, man.
Very nice. So let's take a macro view of the Saints before we get into the matchup. Like when I saw the first 2 weeks of what the Saints were doing on offense, when they scored 91 points in their first two games against Carolina and Dallas, I was like, wow, they look like an NFC
they're
power.
For real. Yeah.
Like Clint Kubiak's offense is just humming. Alvin Kamara was involved. Rashid Shaheed is catching deep balls. And then they go on a 7-game losing streak where they average 16.5 points per game in those 7 losses, effectively taking them out of any sort of good season or playoff contention. Dennis Allen loses his job. I mean, talk about the highs and lows of that early burst from the offense and then those lean times during those 7 losses, what that was like.
Well, really, it was for us, at least for me, it was weeks 3 and 4. Like 1 and 2, we knew Carolina wasn't very good. We didn't really know about Dallas. So those were kind of aberrations. So weeks 3 and 4 is Philly and Atlanta. Saints lead Philly. They got to go the length of the field and score with a minute to play. And they do. Saints should have won them. Your defense should be able to stop that. Atlanta, the Saints dominate. Atlanta does not score an offensive touchdown, and they win by 3. And those 2 games, because you just set off kind of, abilities to beat the Saints. You could run on them, and then it just kind of careened, because you're going to go, oh, yeah, let's go to at Kansas City, Tampa, Chargers. And so it just kind of careened out of control quickly. But to me, it was weeks 1 and 2 were an aberration. Weeks 3 and 4 were the beginning of the downfall. And then it was a spin. The loss at Carolina in week 9, which, was just the death knell for Dennis Allen, 7 in a row. And there wasn't, anything like weeks, 1 and 2 that we saw ever. And we still haven't, even with Coach Rizzi.
So just talk about the coaching situation. Obviously, Allen's gone. Saints haven't been to the playoffs since the COVID year, I don't believe.
It was 2020, and lost to Tampa in the division.
Tampa, right. So who do you think Mickey Loomis is do you think Rizzi has a shot, or is he just strictly the interim? Who do you think? Give me a couple names you think might be on Mickey Loomis's radar.
I think Rizzi has a shot.
Okay.
I do, but he's going to almost and may have to run the table. It may just because when Sean left after 21, he just left. He had a year on his contract. He just decided it was time for him to go. So it wasn't like, well, what are we going to do? We're just going to fire everybody? They just finished 9-8, almost made the playoffs. So they go, well, Dennis is right here. I mean, he's just right here. And he had proven himself as a coordinator. And so I think that Rizzi is going to that's going to hurt him. Because even if he does well, finishes 8-9, I think a 9-8, I think it's his job. But if they finish out and he goes 8-9, and you go, well, Rizzi's right here. And I go, well, we did that before. So I do think he's up there for a chance. And then I think it's going to be, which I think is a mistake. I think that they're just going to, look at who's the hottest, coordinator, Super Bowl offensive defense coordinator. Aaron Glenn from Detroit is probably the name that I think of that would come in and be on that Mickey list right now. But then I just feel like, I just feel like the whole, we're going to go to whoever's the hot coordinator this year has become too overused. And we've got guys in there that don't, shouldn't be head coaches.
Joined by Mike Hoss, play-by-play voice for the New Orleans Saints on WWL Radio in New Orleans. So give us some intel on the guy making his first career start, Jake Haener. He's 25. He's a 4th-round pick in the 2023 draft. Doesn't have a lot of experience, obviously. Has made some appearances, but mostly in mop-up duty and kneel-down type situations. What should the Commanders' defense be looking out for when it comes to Jake Haener at quarterback?
Well, I mean, he had a good camp. You know, he and Spencer Rattler. It was a big battle, and they went with Rattler when Derek got hurt after week 5, 6, 7, 8. He struggled mightily. In fact, he got replaced by Jake in week 7, and Jake threw his first touchdown. It's an offense. He's not a big guy. He's going to run the ball when he can. He's 6'1". Been around the system a little bit, but it's a new system, out of Fresno State. And, he's got talent. He can move in the pocket where Derek struggled. Yet Derek, really has not been sacked a lot, has not thrown a bunch of interceptions. So it's hard to tell. You have to remember, you look at this offense, and you go, okay, well, there's no Rashid Shaheed, no Chris Olave, no Taysom Hill, no Derek Carr. It's like, it's so much different than the offense than we anticipated earlier. So I feel like it's going to be a lot of Kendre Miller, a lot of Alvin Kamara. My feeling is I assume the Commanders will put Marshon on Valdez-Scantling. That would be what I would do. But I think one of the mistakes the Saints made defensively this year is that they didn't do a lot of that. They played more kind of straight-up zone. And, Marshon relishes being the shutdown guy on whoever the opponent's number one guy is. If he doesn't do that, I feel like he gets not bored, but I don't feel like he's as engaged as he was earlier in his career. His last kickoff was week 1 of 23. It's been a while. So I think Jake is going to be. It'll be don't beat yourself. Just let the offense do its thing. Hope and throw some balls to the tight ends, throw them to the guy. Because what's happened is the guys he was playing with in camp, the backups, that's who he's playing with now. So he knows these guys because most of the starters are gone. So it's, who knows? It really, to me, the question for this game is going to be Saints defense against Washington's offense. I mean, I don't know what to. I don't think anybody can know what to expect out of the Saints offense with so much newness. But
right, with all those backups,
where the Saints have struggled is stopping the run, right, and especially stopping the run when the other team has a running quarterback. So put those two together.
Trouble incoming.
That's trouble.
Yeah, you're gonna get a lot of that. Commanders fans you already mentioned Lattimore. Commanders fans are definitely excited about him. And he's not a 1 year or a half a year rental because he still had a couple years on the contract. So he's here for a few years. He's one of the best shutdown corners, like you mentioned, even though Commanders fans haven't seen him yet because he's been banged up. Dive more into what to expect for him. What are Commanders fans going to see from Lattimore, his strengths and weaknesses, and talk about, like you said, what his role will probably be this week.
Well, I'm assuming, again, if he's on Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who's about the only speed guy the Saints have left, you're going to see a shutdown corner. I mean, that's what he relishes in those moments. He's physical. He's not afraid of getting beat, which you got to be when you're a corner. He's very physical at the line of scrimmage. We just haven't seen it in a while. He has. This injury, this most recent kind of injury of 2024, we really hadn't seen him. He kind of played through a lacerated kidney a couple of years ago and came back at the end of the season. So he's a tough guy. We just haven't seen the same Marshon Lattimore in 24 that maybe we saw. I don't think it's an age thing, and I don't think it's an injury thing. I'm not really know, but he was really kind of. We haven't talked about him at all since he left in the secondary.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's not like, oh my gosh, who's taking Lattimore's spot, right? Who's doing this? Who's doing that? They've been using Ugo Amadi and Alonji Taylor, Will Harris, and Kool-Aid McKinstry's getting some time, but you would think that would be a name that we would be going, but we had played so much without him anyway. We'd kind of gotten used to it, but he can still play, man. And I think he'll come in with a head full of steam, trying to show the fans of what they didn't have anymore. But don't know. I'm curious myself. I have a buddy of mine. I'm from Manassas, who texted me like, "What are we getting? Like, what are we getting?" And I was like, "Dude, I don't know. You're getting a tough cat, but I don't know. We haven't seen it in some time."
Mike, let's talk about that Saints defensive line. We're intimately familiar with Chase Young, obviously the number 2 overall pick here for the Commanders, then the Washington football team. It didn't work out. He went to the Niners, and then he signs a 1-year deal with the Saints. He has 3.5 sacks. And we're also familiar with your sack leader, Brian Bresee, who has 7.5. He went to high school in Montgomery County here in Maryland. Stud, went to Clemson. And what a play he had last week blocking that field goal against the Giants to preserve the win. So talk about that defensive line, how they have designs on trying to slow down Jaden Daniels, B-Rob, and company.
Well, that'll be the key because they can get pressure, and they're very athletic. The problem sometimes happens is that they will come so hard on the outside, and Chase Young has 17. So his numbers are a little, they don't look great right off the bat, 3.5 sacks, but he's got 17 quarterback hits. He's disruptive as he's always been. And really for Brian Bresee, man, there are just times where he does things, especially he'll do a stunt spin move inside where he just leaves the guard of the tackle just standing there. Like they didn't even know where he went. He just every once in a while would have these plays where he just, is so amazing. But what happens is they're too fast. They get too fast, too hard outside, and the lane discipline is not there. Quarterback takes off. I mean, Drew Lock ran for, 50, he was the leading rusher last week. He was the leading rusher the last 2 weeks. So that's the problem is that they come hard, and Chase has been great because he's been very, very disruptive. And I think Brian, we're just starting to see the tip of the iceberg. Last year, he led was like 7.5 passes batted down. That was his thing. Now he's, from a sack standpoint, I think the upside on him is amazing, and he's been healthy for the most part. But they've got to figure out a way because quarterbacks who can run, even those who can't run, quite frankly, have killed them because they come too hard, too fast on the outside. And if they blitz from the outside, man, the lanes on the inside have been open for the quarterbacks. We
had heard that Kamara was battling some sort of an illness this week and was missing practice.
But I'd much rather have that than a hamstring. So
yeah. So you think he'll play?
Sunday, yeah, I mean, I never, unless he's missing a limb, do I not think that Alvin Kamara is going to play. He's as tough as they come.
Gotcha.
And so, yeah, I know we'll learn a little bit more today, but they might hold him out. I mean, he's one of those guys, just like Derek. If Derek, they've made the decision to go with Jake, but they were going to go till the very end with Derek because he's, one of those players like, that many teams have who can play without practice.
Right.
And so Alvin is clearly one of those guys. And especially for whatever reason, I don't know if it's been this way in Washington, but we've had a number of Friday DNP injuries. Like what? They used to do nothing on Friday. I don't know, what are they doing on Fridays now? But all across either the Saints opponent or the Saints, these guys pop up on Friday as DNPs. Like what's happening? So I think Alvin will be there.
Mike, we appreciate the time. Have a great call this weekend as the Commanders come and visit your Saints. We'll have you on again soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, fellas.